Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the final segment. It's the John Key special, and we have had three very special guests, two of which are still with us. Penny Bright from pennybrightformare.org. I got it correct this time. And Ian Parker as well, who as yet doesn't have much of a website to speak of.
I do actually, Vinny. Public credit. If anybody types into Google public credit or bust, they will come up with my blog, I'm sure. Public credit or bust.blogspot.co.nz, I think it is.
Public credit or bust.blogspot.co.nz, you say?
Yes.
It's a mouthful.
Yep. It's it does quite well.
You know, here's the problem. You can't exactly be a financial analyst and do something to the level that you do. And if I might say so, Ian, in terms of like the financial system, how it operates in New Zealand and things of that nature, in terms of all the people that I've interviewed in my career, you seem to have the best handle on it out of anybody that I know. And it astounds me that you... Well, no, actually, it makes sense that very few people have heard of you.
Yeah, well, I didn't, mate. I just made sure. I've seen too many sort of step up and go off half-cocked. Russell Norman comes to mind when he started talking about printing or issuing bonds and buying our own bonds to rebuild Christchurch, which is a bloody good idea, but they jumped all over him and shot him down as printing money is going to be inflationary and the likes. And then when it came to the crunch, he couldn't explain the various means of monetary easing, that there's a number, well, three of them in the main, and two of them favour the banks, and the one he was talking about doesn't. But he didn't know enough about it to explain it. He got all excited and sort of jumped in with both feet, and he wasn't up to it. So I just I had observed that over the years and made sure that when I poked my head up, I was going to be ready, so they couldn't ridicule me off the face of the planet, basically.
So yeah, are you actually ready, or is this just like a little bit of a looking over the trenches, just going, will they shoot me this time? I'll take that as a yes.
Obviously, when you hit the radar big time, you'll come under more pressure from them. But at the minute, put it this way, it's a creeping, a growing awareness. I'm growing more of a following by the day. And unfortunately, a lot of it on my blog and stuff is from countries and throughout Europe and America, and it's America, Russia, and the likes. Show more of an interest in this than most New Zealanders at present, sadly. Most of the traffic on my blog is from offshore, especially in European nations. A lot of traffic from the Ukraine and the likes, where they're actually getting their throats seriously cut by this thing. Well,
we are allowed 1,000 times more pesticide in our water than they are in the Ukraine and European Union.
Mm-hmm. It's we better move on with this more solution-based side of things, so that people don't go away and cut their wrists and think there are no solutions. The bottom line is, at the moment, like I said, our banking system is basically controlled by what they call the Anglo-Saxon heritage private central banking model, where private interests run and administer our base accountancy of credit and the issuance of our currency, and issue it as interest-bearing loans in its entirety, with the interest meant to be a fair and reasonable fee charged by them for their prowess in keeping what is authorised and balanced with what there is to cover it. And they always cook the books, of course, in self-interest by creating more credit and issuing it as interest-bearing loans than there is the means of repayment. And then they blame it all on us, rack up the interest rates to or start calling in loans, and then cause a recession for which they use the purchasing power they've gained from the interest to walk in and buy up under receivership all the distressed assets that we've slaved to build. That's pretty much the scheme. When you go to the eastern nations, like Russia, the India, the Chinas, they have a different philosophy on money. They practice public central banking, where they take the natural resource collateral that gives value to the deal, type it into their own accounts, and then spend it directly into circulation to fund the essentials of life, basically build their essential infrastructure and everything without the impost of interest. So they presently do it. That's how they operate their systems. Russia is a fully functioning public central banking nation. Japan is the likes of Argentina now. It's only the Anglo-Saxon heritage nations. But here's the kicker. What they don't really want us to know and look back, they always talk about looking forward, is in the Anglo-Saxon heritage central banking network of nations. They don't want us to look back, because you'll find that every Anglo-Saxon heritage nation, including America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, when we first funded our state housing project with our own sovereign dollars, just given value by the fact we had the trees, the materials and the labour, and we just needed to make that happen, basically the natural resources and the labour, by issuing the means, the tokens of exchange, so that we could pay people to make it happen. And we've also done that. And in those nations, when we've practiced public central banking, there has never been, especially Canada, between 1935 and 1974, if you study their history, practicing fully functioning public central banking, they built all of their railways, their dams, their infrastructure. They only had a debt of, at the end of that period, a small debt owed to themselves, which didn't really matter because it wasn't owed to foreigners at interest, of $18 billion. And then some scumbag fell for this trick that, we can get cheaper credit from this private central banking model and start borrowing it from them. And their debt today now stands, that's from 1974, when they fell for the trick of getting cheaper credit from these people. Their national debt is now $685 billion. And New Zealand, I was looking at some interesting figures in New Zealand the other day, around 1984, from a very good research outfit called CAFCA, that's the Campaign Against the Foreign Control of Aotearoa. They keep tracks on the foreign ownership of New Zealand's economy, and they just said in 1984 we only had a national debt of $18 billion. Now that we've fallen for this cheap credit from this private central banking network, and the debt that has been originated in this country that is owed to them sits at some $440 billion, on which we're paying $39 billion a year in interest. So basically, what it comes down to now is that the person on the average wage in this country, everybody sort of focuses on domestic income tax. People in this country on the average wage are losing purchasing power from their income straight away, flowing out in foreign dividends and interest in this country to about 50% of their purchasing power from income. That's how bad it is. So we need to do an audit. The private central bankers that our government has contracted out the base accountancy of our credit and issuance of our currency to this private central banking network. And the contract states that their job is meant to be to keep inflation low and price stability in place. Well, to me, can be proven that they are not fulfilling their contract in both of those means, because they removed, in 1999, they removed the residential land portion of housing from the Consumer Price Index, which is meant to be what measures inflation as a sort of an alarm bell to that they're issuing too much credit.
The canary in the coal mine.
It is. So what it did by removing the land portion of housing from the Consumer Price Index, it basically allowed the banks to pump credit for us to trade houses beyond what the normal course of business could ever support without ringing the bells that they claim. So, there's all of this hoo-ha about whether it's immigrants that are causing, no doubt they're causing a little bit of the inflated housing prices in this country, to beyond, what the average wage can support. But this thing here is not even getting looked at, because it's like the banks in this country are untouchable, you just can't look at them. And so to me, there needs to be an auditing of our national debt from somebody that obviously knows how it works to begin with, that has to do the auditing. There are plenty of high-level academics around the world now, especially since the global financial crisis, that have come out, the likes of Joseph Stiglitz, David C. Courtin, these high-level guys, that if you could get them to come in and do an independent audit of our national debt, I'm sure they would find that these guys are in breach of their contract. And basically, we should just tell them to piss off and go back to... because our public debt, our government debt, can basically be annulled almost overnight, because they only practice a prudential reserve base, accountancy of credit. It's just a book entry ledger system, basically, of accountancy. So we could say, they authorise the value of the debt they lent us at the government level. We could overnight type that into our account and say, well, you said it had this value, and we can say goodbye to them and wipe our freaking national debt overnight and start practicing fully functioning public credit banking. And then start, basically using our natural resource collateral to spend directly our own sovereign dollars into circulation without foreign bank interest. And it's possible, it's been done before, and it's happening in most of the Eastern, or the BRIC bloc of nations. They call them the BRICS: Brazil, Russia, India, China. Japan also practices fully functioning public central banking. A completely different philosophy on money, and it's just an alternative that the owners of our corporate media and the owners of our private banking in this country don't even want us to know exists. Like, I'll give you the auditing, the contract. Our Auditor General's office is meant to audit these people, right, to make sure that they're delivering on their contracted price stability and low inflation. And I'll give you an idea this is from the Auditor General's office from 2007. This is the forward to the 2007 New Zealand Auditor General report, Effectiveness of the New Zealand Debt Management Office. And this gives you an explanation of what the New Zealand Debt Management Office is and just how competent our auditors are. It makes very clear how dependent upon the second-hand advice the New Zealand Public Service are and how susceptible to being misled that we are. The forward states, the New Zealand Debt Management Office, NZDMO, is a unit within the Treasury. It is responsible for the efficient management of the Crown's debt and associated financial assets within an appropriate risk management framework. Its broader responsibilities include providing capital market advice and financial transaction services to other agencies of the Crown. In carrying out a performance audit of the NZDMO, and remembering this is our Auditor General, my overall objective was to determine the NZDMO's level of performance under the authority of the Minister of Finance in managing the Crown's public debt and financial asset portfolios. Given the specialist technical functions of the NZDMO, I sought expert technical assistance with the audit. I appointed KPMG under Section 33(1) of the Public Audit Act 2001 to carry out the performance audit on my behalf under Section 16(1) of the Act. The material in my audit report is of a very technical nature because of its specialist functions undertaken by the NZDMO. The non-technical reader can be assured that the audit did not identify any fundamental concerns with the performance of the NZDMO. So there you go. We've got our Auditor General stating that he doesn't have the ability to audit the New Zealand Debt Management Office, which our Reserve Bank has contracted out the accountancy of our base credit and issuance of currency to. And yet, in the very last paragraph, he assures us that we have nothing to worry about. And when I suggest to anybody you take the name KPMG and type it into Google and put the word fines after it, just as if you do at the minute with most every major international banking institution in the world, you'll see a massive list of where these institutions have colluded with the senior elements of international high finance to construct pyramid frauds time and time again. So we basically have a bunch of...
This reminds me of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where you have an entire book full of very, very scary creatures and hazards of the universe, and on the back you just have "Don't Panic" written on it.
Yeah, it's the Keystone bloody cops, mate. That's what it is.
Well, but I mean, the thing is that I've made contact with Professor Prem Seeker, who's based at Essex University, and he's a professor of accounting. And if you Google his name, I mean, there's just pages and pages and pages of references. He regularly writes for The Guardian, etc. And what his specialist area is like tax avoidance and the pinstripe mafia, which is the KPMGs, the Deloittes, the Ernst & Youngs, and the PricewaterhouseCoopers. That they're as dodgy as. I mean, never mind that, your little small-time burglars and stuff. It's the pinstripe mafia. That's where the big bucks, all the white-collar crime and the tax avoidance, the tax havens, all that stuff, that's where it happens. And, I mean, it's really scary stuff, and especially when you look at bloody dodgy outfits like Transparency International New Zealand, and you look at who some of their sponsors are. It's the same sort of people. Talk about cover-up.
We've come up with so many great solutions already, I can't believe it.
Yeah, well, I think Penny's far more deeper. See, it's not really until recent times a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on commercial contract law starting to supersede common law, and it's only in recent times that I've sort of realised the importance of that now as well. Is with the TPP agreement that's being discussed in secret, Penny, you'd be well aware of that. And basically the stuff that's been leaked, the conditions that are being imposed by what they call the investor state. Sure. This is the financial institutions that are having a massive influence on the regulations and basically breaking down all barriers and giving them free entry to countries.
Well, it's outrageous because 600 corporations get to see the text and the public don't. So Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, what sort of partnership excludes the bloody public?
Yeah,
it's outrageous.
Yep.
It's more like a piece of...
And you see, you'd be aware also, because you're pretty familiar with Jane Kelsey, aren't you?
Yes.
Tenny, you're friends with her, eh? But at least they're telling us of the PPP negotiations that have been held in secret. But there's another one that's come up, is it the TISS? They've just disclosed
TICS, TICS?
It's a new free trade agreement being done now with including the European Union nations as well, because what they're trying to do is basically form these currency blocks. And it's a bit like they've done with the local government here in New Zealand. All our councils are in the poo because of this impossible funding puzzle that's basically a pyramid fraud. And so what they do is they go to a bunch of you and they go, well, the ones that are already underwater, if we mix you up with the ones that are just above water, we'll offer you this avenue to cheaper credit, so you can all get cheap credit. But we form this cooperative of liabilities as well. So if one of you go under, we can actually come in and set your rating base and everything with a view to repaying our debts. That's what the Local Government Funding Agency of New Zealand, basically, where many councils have joined now, is based in. It's the same thing as the European Union's a bigger model with about 17 countries in it. It's all these countries that were under this private banking pyramid fraud that couldn't stay. Some were already under and some were afloat. So they go and offer them these new cooperative to become these new cooperative pools of collateral, but they also have to share the liabilities and they can never repay. So ultimately they all end up frickin' seeking each other and the bankers end up owning them all. And so this is it. No, this...
So the simple demand, okay, there's an election coming up now, so what should the demand be for the political parties to pick up? This is what we reckon would fix it. Okay, off you go, Ian. What will fix it?
Could I say one thing before? Make fraud illegal. Go ahead, Ian.
Basically, I believe we should demand an independent audit from some of the more truly independent high-level people with international high finance that have a history of working for the good as opposed to the bad, and basically reviewing the contract of the New Zealand Debt Management Office to which our Reserve Bank has contracted out our base accountancy of credit and issuance of currency. And if those guys are found in, it's just it's just irrefutable when you look deeply into and go line by line and do the old Swiss cheese chart thing through our financial system regulation and what it causes, that they're not living up to their contract. And basically, and if they aren't, well, then we reclaim our Reserve Bank for ourselves. And because basically they told us this system would give us access to cheap credit, access to foreign markets. Basically, we don't need to worry about maintaining our versatility as a nation because there is nobody out there that's going to take advantage of our vulnerabilities anymore. The world's benign, and that's what we need. We need a review, and basically...
but what is the document or documents that are going to be reviewed?
It's an omnibus of legislation. The Public Finance Act, the Reserve Bank Act, the International Financial Agreement Act. Another one I just recently discovered, and you guys will find this very interesting because looking into that TPP, what they were going to, this institution that keeps coming up is this ICSID, this International Committee for the Settlement of Investment Disputes. Are you familiar with that, Penny?
Oh, yes.
sits under the umbrella of the World Bank, which of course is the soft lending side of the private central banking network, and the IMF on the other side is the receivership branch. Basically, when you inevitably can't repay your debts, the IMF come in as a receivers on behalf of the private central banking network and take over your affairs and supposedly trade you out of trouble. But like Joseph Stiglitz, the former vice president of the World Bank and Nobel Economics Prize winner, has said it's actually the institution that chased you further into trouble, basically, to get what they didn't get the first time around. So, but this international committee for this is, I thought this is what the TPP was already going to sign us up to, and because it's an appointed arbitration board, it's not elected by anybody, and it's appointed by all the public institutions that are already subverted and perverted by criminal high finance. But to my surprise, we are already signatories of it, and it got ratified in 1971, and we already have a number of our QCs already on the arbitration panels that go around holding court cases when, say, the likes of a corporation has done an odious deal with the previous government or the likes, and the next one comes in and says, "Oh, that's corrupt. We want to, in the interest of the social motive." Or they hold an arbitration court basically to see whether you must continue to hand over your assets, confiscate the assets on behalf of the corporations, or basically what's happening now is, or you have to pay compensation for impinging the future profits of the corporation. It used to cost only about $100,000 to take a claim to this institution. The cost of it now has risen to something like $7 million for the average claim just to go and defend you. And we have a number of our high-level, old-school QC lawyers and the likes that work out of this. There's an outfit in London called the Essex Courts Arbitration Lawyers, and so one of our own QCs just appeared in a recent case with Ecuador, where some oil interests took the new Ecuadorian government to court because they've brought in all these new environmental standards, and one of our guys was already a part of an arbitration board that awarded the biggest, something like $1.7 billion, and the biggest compensation awarded yet. So, see, my concern is we're already tied up with the arbitration courts of these outfits, and it makes me wonder. I've always sort of wondered why there hasn't been much action on the financial abuses we're suffering. Well, we're already essentially, I think, our economic sovereignty is pretty much a falsity. Like, the International Financial Agreement Act that they recently passed back in 2012, I think it was, that passed into law, states that new regulations of the International Monetary Fund become automatic law or automatic regulation within our financial system structures without even now passing through Parliament. And that's been passed in. So, a lot of our financial regulation, if we want to try and act against it for the social motive, is already out of our hands and in foreign bureaucrat institutions that are already majorly influenced by foreign big money, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, and on whose lawful authority? If the will of the people is the basis of the authority of government, how the hell did all this happen?
Yeah, well, personally, I think we should use the TPPA as TP when we need to PP at a PPTA meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Vinny.
You, Lou, you're too sharp.
We'll be right back, folks.
You're too sharp for me, Vinny, I tell you.
I should be on 7 sharp, shouldn't I? We've only got 1 more minute left of the broadcast. Penny, have you got time for your solutions? Have we got any? Is there really a solution to anything? Look, okay, here's my creative solution. We sacrifice the bankers to an Icelandic volcano. Okay? Debt crisis solved.
I seen that the other day, and I thought that was a bloody good idea, mate.
Stranger things have happened. You'll see the economy just go boom. Oh my God, it's suddenly all right. Did somebody sacrifice a banker to an angry volcano? I think they must have.
1 minute would be great.
Okay. Yes, sorry, Penny, I'll shut up.
You have literally 1 minute.
Okay.
Go on, Penny.
Oh. Okay, folks, like I said, Penny Bright Public Watchdog's going to take on John Key, the Wall Street Poodle, to become the MP of Helensville. Really simple, electorate vote, Penny Bright, MP for Helensville. John Key, doesn't matter, nobody votes for him, he's still going to be number one on the National Party list and get in anyway. So, why not have someone who's working for the 99%? So come on, folks, word of mouth, get that word out, and it's going to be fun.
Penny Bright, Ian Parker, the websites, ladies and gentlemen, are Penny Bright for Mayor at wordpress.com, and also, what was it, publiccreditorbust.blogspot.co.nz, if I remember correctly.
Yes, that's if I remember correctly too, but if you type in public credit or bust on Google, you should come up with it.
Something of that nature. We'll see you again sometime, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for supporting the broadcast.